All right, so welcome everyone to week 6 of prayers and meditations by the Mother. Today we have the common prayer that we have to reflect upon one by one is February 9, 1914. So let us first maybe read the prayer, and then we can one by one we can share our reflections on the prayer. Yeah. So Shilpi or Chitraji, whoever is has the capacity to unmute and share, please unmute and maybe just go through the prayer, a reading of the prayer once.
February 9, 1914. Whatever names may be given to thee, O Lord, by the elite of humanity, a thirst for something absolute, it seeks ardently for thee. Even those who seem to move furthest away from thee, even those who are exclusively occupied with themselves, are they not searching for an absolute in sensation, an absolute in satisfaction, and in spite of its vanity, that search also can someday lead to thee? Thou art for too much at the core, at the heart of all things, for even the very worst egoisms not to be transformed by thee into aspirations. The only thing we must fear and avoid is the inertia of inconscience, of blind and heavy ignorance. That state lies at the very bottom of the infinite ladder that rises towards thee, and all the effort consists in pulling matter out of this primeval darkness so as to awaken it to consciousness. Even passion is preferable to inconscience. We must therefore go constantly forward to conquer that universal bedrock of inconscience, and through our own organism transform it gradually into luminous consciousness. O Lord, sweet Master of love, thou whom I see so living, so conscious within all things, I adore thee with a boundless devotion.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for reading out, Chitraji. So, Chitraji, would you like to share your reflections first on the prayer?
Just generally, I can tell because it is very deep. Yeah.
Yeah. Sure, sure. Yeah, whatever
Yeah.
comes to you. Yeah, please
Yeah,
share.
generally, yeah. Because I felt about those three qualities, no, sattva, rajas, and tamas. Mother always prefers, no, in her, I mean, after the ashram is established, once one disciple asked her about the I mean, the qualities of the disciples, how even like Vivekananda and other big saints, they are fit for the yoga more than us. I think Nirodharan asked once Sri Aurobindo. Then Sri Aurobindo told, it seems, yeah, as disciples, I agree, but actually, uh, I don't assure that those, I mean, high level saints, they can't agree for this yoga of transformation. So this avataric mission, Sri Aurobindo's and mothers, though, actually their mission is purposely to transform the nature, no? So mother, even in this prayer, she admits all the rajasic and passions she admits. I feel like that actually. And also in my actually personal life also, my husband used to be very passionate, and actually he is that type only. He has got lot of energy, but he so many times he revolted against mother. But I can say by mother's grace, she is keeping him also in her lap, that I can see as a third person, not as a wife, as a third person.
Beautiful,
I can,
beautiful.
yeah, I
Yeah.
can always see he is always with revolt, with anger, with depression, and everything. He's always pulled towards mother. Always, always. He himself will tell that. So this prayer really reminded me of his qualities, and his turn towards mother, it is not his thing, his credit, but really it is only because of that glorious, I can say the glorious presence of mother, really. Yeah, this is the thing I want to share.
Beautiful, beautiful. Yeah, amazing. Thank you for sharing. Yeah. So, Shilpi, would you like to share? Do you have the capacity now to unmute? Yeah.
Yes,
Yes,
yes.
yes.
Yeah, Monica, I also really found this prayer very deep and very multi-layered. Some of the lines that I resonated more were like, here Mother says, even those who seem to move farthest away from thee, even those who are exclusively occupied with themselves, are they not searching for an absolute in sensation, an absolute in satisfaction? And in spite of its vanity, that search also can someday lead to thee. I found this very beautiful, and also it gives such a clear understanding, no, that when we are very much like we say lipped in the world, like we are completely into the world as we are most of our lives, and running after this, that, one milestone, second milestone, and mothers here says that even when we are seemingly farthest away from thee and occupied in all of these things, looking for some looking for that peace via sensations and absolute and satisfaction. In spite of that, that search also leads to thee someday. And I think one of the ways it leads to thee is that we get disappointed over and over, and then we see, okay, what is it that we really truly want? But I found this very, very beautiful and very humbling also. Also from a perspective of when, let's say I look around and I see somebody is very much in the corporate ladder, or somebody is very much, looking to buy things, shopping sprees and foodies and stuff like that. And it's very humbling to remember that everybody has their path, and every path, she's saying, can someday lead to these. So it kind of takes that sense of judgment and that sense of superiority out of the picture. I mean, I don't want to do that again. I feel I have done that enough, but at least there's no need to make a judgment on somebody else who might be pursuing any of these paths. So I really like that. I found that was very unburdening on my mind. And also I felt that this is the biggest scam that's going on. No, we look for that satisfaction in so many worldly things, and I feel that is the biggest scam that's going on. But unless we go through that scam, we don't understand it. So yeah, so I think that's I found this very, very clear and very very appealing and very humbling. And then the mother says, thou art far too much at the core, at the heart of all things, for even the very worst egoisms not to be transformed by thee into aspiration. Again, this feels very humbling, very heartening that, the Lord is there very much at the core. Everything is Him. So there is no reason to lose heart, no reason to kind of justify my feelings bad or depressed about somebody or for myself or something. So again, I really like these lines also. Then there is something she says which I didn't quite understand, and if you could elaborate on that, Monica, like whenever during this call. The thing she says, the only thing we must fear and avoid is the inertia of inconscience, of blind and heavy ignorance. So if you could speak something on that. And then later, She says, and all thy effort consists in pulling matter out of this primeval darkness so as to awaken it to consciousness. Even passion is preferable to inconscience. And like Chitraji said so beautifully that, even when we are going through that passion, even Mother is saying that is preferable to inconscience. And um, yeah, I think that part I relate to also. And also one more thing, when the mother says that thy effort consists in pulling matter out of this primeval darkness so as to awaken it to consciousness. The one thing I feel that, up till a point I used to think that there is matter out there, which is in conscience and which is dark, and, we like, there has to be consciousness infused in it so that it elevates. And then of late, it seems that it is all my own states of mind, my own states of consciousness. And it is my state of consciousness that needs to be elevated. There is a state of consciousness which is called matter, and there is a state of consciousness which is higher than that. And all the work that's going on is within myself to elevate my own consciousness. And yeah, Monica, if you could also speak a little bit on does that seems to be the meaning of these lines. Yeah, and later, and the rest, I think I relate to what Chitraji shared as well.
Okay, beautiful. Yeah, thank you for
Yeah,
sharing.
thank you. Yeah, very nice.
Yeah.
Very beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. So, okay, so let us see. I'll try to cover whatever I can as we go through. Whatever names may be given to thee, O Lord, by the elite of humanity, a thirst for something absolute, a wanting to refine and a wanting to, go better and better. We see this happening with people who are doing sports, for example, always wanting to be better and better of themselves, trying to push themselves into zones which may be discomforting, but yet there is an urge within for a betterment, and that is why when we talk of perfection, and I think we have addressed this earlier in many many sessions, that when people say I am a perfectionist and all that, uh, we are all a perfectionist. We are all wanting to always better and better whatever we are good at. For example, somebody may be wanting to cook better, maybe wanting to serve better, maybe wanting to keep the house in a better, tidy and neat and clean kind of a state, maybe wanting to have better and better degrees, for example. So this thirst for refinement, this thirst for improving or betterment. Now the thing is that I may think that a betterment in just a blind betterment may give me something. Usually a blind betterment does not give me anything. I'm still empty. So we will come upon that also later. But this thirst by the elite, people who want to refine themselves further and further, the people who are not just satisfied with oneself. Mother shares in her words that when you never be satisfied with yourself. This is so beautiful actually, that don't feel that okay, I have done whatever I could done in this I could have done in this life, and this is the best I could be. Never say that. So I think I can completely resonate with this, because we always have something or the other to work upon, not really outside, yes, also outside, but also within the being, as Shilpi was sharing. The states of consciousness can be just better and better. We can just widen and horizons, widen our being more and more and more and more. There is no end to it. And I think, again, when we talk about the divine, we talk about divine as infinite. So perfection is also infinite. You can actually never touch perfection. You can create something really beautiful, but then there would always be a scope for a betterment, always. Whether it's a piece of music, whether it's an art, cooking, anything, whether it's a garment, whether it's your own self that you have been working on your own being, and you will always see, okay, abhi ye aur bhi improvement ho sakta hai, yahan pe I lose temper very easily, for example. So this microscopic observation of the world outside and the world within is a constant search for perfection, for betterment. This is the thirst. Now, when a thirst is there, it definitely points us that water is also there. Yeah. How would I have thirst if there was nothing that could fulfill the thirst? So, this thirst for betterment, this thirst for being a better and better version of my own being, is the divine himself. That is the water. Again, that connects us with, I think, one of the quotes that Shilpi was once sharing, by an Italian monk. Thou art the love with which I seek thee, with which I love thee. So this yearning, this wanting has been considered very auspicious as for a human birth. Why? Because if you are really not wanting, if you're satisfied with yourself, you're as good as an animal. Not demeaning the animal, but the state of consciousness. Animals, plants, all have different states of consciousness. We are human being in this birth, so we have been given a task to do. And if this thirst does not develop to be better and better version of ourselves, then what is the difference between me and an animal? The animal also eats, sleeps, gets up, eats, sleeps, reproduce, gets up, eats, sleeps, reproduce. This the same thing is happening with me. I'm so content. I don't want to grow. I don't want to evolve. I don't even look at myself and see that, okay, anger is there, okay, all the hate, jealousy is there. What is to be done with them? Is there anything to be done? Okay, this is what is human nature, so I don't do anything about it. This is how I live. I abuse people in relationships. I abuse my own self, torture my own self, but I never question it. I always am satisfied almost with it. So that is why this satisfaction is very dangerous, and that again leads to what uh, Shilpi was asking to delve upon. The only thing we must fear and avoid is the inertia of inconscience. The okay, settle ho gaye, like a stone, you're settled. You don't want to move on, you don't want to grow, you are not alive. You are just alive as a animal being. Reproduction, sleeping, all the the things that body needs, that's it. So you've got settled. That is the inertia. We see many people around us, and again, not to demean, these are our states of consciousness which we have to go through in order to progress. We see many people around us who are very content, eating, sleeping. Now they do not undergo suffering. They do not undergo this yearning. Maybe they have to kind of just like Chitra ji was sharing the three qualities of sattva, rajas, and tamas. So a rajasic ego is a better ego than the tamasic ego. Yeah, कम से कम भोग तो कर रही है. अब भोग करने में थोड़ा सा movement है. If you are consuming, as you were talking about shopping, so you are wanting to consume. अच्छा, consume करने से what is the purpose? You want to be fulfilled. Yeah, but you see that this fulfillment is so temporary. I buy a new bag, for one day I'm okay, but then I this hunger never dies. So you shop again. One day, if the grace allows, one day you will actually question, how long will I continue to shop and earn being a slave of this consumerism? Because this is not really feeding my hunger. So what do I do with this hunger? And that is why a rajasic ego is a better ego than the tamasic ego. Not saying that we always fluctuate. I believe that it's not that one person is settled in one kind of ego. I would say we fluctuate. Yeah. Sometimes we are in the sattvic ego when we are more receptive to a guru's words, or like that. But that again has to be left. All these have to be left, all the states of egos, slowly, on the path of surrender. And please do not think that you will be interrupting the flow. Please unmute and share at any moment of time. Yeah. So even those who seem to move farthest away from the, like, going for some passions, not really thinking about who is the creator of the universe, why am I born, what is the purpose of my life, not really at all there. Even those who are exclusively occupied with themselves being the body, for example, I am the body, I have to earn for myself, this is my desire, I have to look for my desire, I have to fulfill my desire. Okay, ice cream khane ka man ho gaya, chalo ice cream khate hain, something like that. Are they not searching for an absolute insensation? Even people who yearn for physical pleasures, they also yearn for some kind of contentment. So it tells me that there is a thirst which is present. I am not acknowledging that thirst widely to myself, but owing to the thirst, I get up from my bed and I make myself a cup of tea, for example, or I go and meet a person. Yeah, so this absolute, whenever you meet a friend, you find a kind of a communion, you feel fulfilled. So you get up from your bed, you go out, you maybe shop for few moments. For few moments, there is a sense of fulfillment. But again, that is our kind of the way we live. That is again temporary, and we go from one desire to the other desire to the other desire. That is our, like Sri Aurobindo says in Savitri. We all we do is we are leaving corpses of desires in the past. So if you look at man's history, the way he has lived, it is one desire after other desire which I have been following in my life. Is there a way without the desires also? And mother says, when she talks about mental and vital education, mother says that, for example, if your child is craving for something and he's a very desiring child, he desires one thing after another again and again, so you should actually inculcate a sense of desiring for the best in the child, desire for a way to learn, maybe beautiful things in life, desiring for the best, desiring for maybe working with a lot of perseverance, making a puzzle or whatever. So although it is easier said than done with kids, but if we are on the path, I think we can also bring our children along, hold hands and together walk on this path. And maybe desiring for the dissolution of desire, that is again a very high kind of desire, which would actually uh, lead us to leaving the handicap of desires. Yeah. So are they not searching for an absolute in sensation, an absolute, पूर्ण की बात करते हैं ना, completion की बात करते हैं. So human being, the way he is, the egoistic being that we are incomplete. The ego is incomplete in itself. So all that seeks completion is the ego. Now the atma or the self is already complete. That does not seek completion. All that seeks completion is ego. And this is our journey. All that needs to surrender is the ego. The psychic being is already surrendered. That doesn't need to surrender. Krishna is already surrendered. Who needs to surrender? The Arjun. Arjun needs to surrender. So our task is, because we are living as egos mostly, a mental being, always trapped in me and my stories, which is so hard to let go of. And that is why it is called the veil of ignorance. When it comes to us, the veil of ignorance, me and my stories, what other people are doing to me, what I am doing to other people, it appears so real that it is hard to tell it that it's Maya. It's very hard. It overpowers the mental space, it overpowers the emotional space. Yeah. So it's very hard to then negate it. As Kabir says, in one of the couplets, he says that sab jag sota neend bari aur mujhe na aave neend. So he says the way human beings are living, they are sleeping. And the way I am living, mere ko to neend aati nahi hai, I can't sleep. Now what he is actually referring to as is, what for us human beings is waking state, where we are sensing, perceiving, thinking, taking in all the world through the mind and through the senses. That state is called as sleep for the enlightened ones, the awakened ones, because they do not give too much of reality status to what we perceive through the senses and the mind. For them, that is not real. Yeah. So this Kabir talks of this as sleep, that the whole world sleeps and I am awake with my inner guru. That is what he says, कि मुझे नींद नहीं आती, I can't sleep. And when he says I can't sleep, it means that I cannot imagine, I cannot live as the world of the senses, the world of the mind is real, because that is an illusion. Yeah. So I have to, as we say, that we create our own reality, and that is why me and my story plays such a havoc over me, because whatever I'm listening through my ears, I consider that real. I easily let it disturb me, be very, very important for me. Whatever I'm thinking in my mind, that also I consider very, very real. Yeah, very real. It appears so real. And what is the proof? I will say, I have that person in front of me. How can you say it is not real? How can you say that person slapped me? How can you say that I should not be reacting? So that is the illusion of the senses, illusory senses. So this, I don't know, मैं कहाँ से शुरू करती हूँ और कहाँ पहुँच जाती हूँ. So this absolute in sensation, this absolute completion, wanting completion in satisfaction, and in spite of its vanity, the ahankar, the ghamand, the pride, that yes, this is the way to go, I know that this is the way to go, that search also can lead someday to thee. How would that search lead to thee? Now I remind myself of Kabir's couplet here. दौड़त दौड़त दौड़िया जहां लगी मन की दौड़, दौड़ थके मन स्थिर भया तो वस्तु ठौर की ठौर. So Kabir says, I ran and ran and ran. Now why would I run? Because I'm feeling this thirst. Yeah, that is why I would run. Otherwise I would not run. Yeah. So this thirst is very beneficial because it is making me move from the inertia of inconscience. Yeah. So I ran and ran and ran, and I ran in all the directions I could run for the thirst to be fulfilled. But I could not really complete the thirst. The thirst was never fulfilled for a longer duration. It always got fulfilled very, very temporary. The same person who used to give me happiness now is the source of my pain and misery. Yeah, the same very person who I held responsible for giving me happiness. So then I realized that running is not going to help me. Yeah. So when we follow our passions, when we follow our desires and ambitions and greed and lust and all, these so-called negative movements, we realize that, oh my God, I'm not really getting fulfilled. This is not leading me anywhere. What is the thing? If I'm sensitive enough, I would actually feel about it that I'm craving and craving for approval from this or that person in my life, or something to resolve an external situation. And yet my thirst remains always a thirst. I'm always incomplete. When will this come to end? Because by running, it is not coming to an end. And then something will dawn upon, which would lead me towards this divine presence, that which is already complete in spite of all the incompletions. And then a new journey can begin, perfecting ourselves, refining our movements and senses. Yeah, not wanting to abuse the senses and movements and thought for wanting to complete myself. Knowing that I am complete, how can I become better and better? Then a new life almost starts for us. Yeah. And this is, really beautiful. Worst egoisms mother refers to, whenever we are following our egoism, we are not aware usually. We always fall on our nose. We fall very badly. Yeah. And it seems like a bad hurt, but it's a blessing in this disguise. Yeah. Because if I would not fall on my nose, how would I know that there is a better life for me than following the blind egoism? Yeah, how would I know? So it's very good, it's beautiful, I would say it's a blessing if you are falling, because if you are not even running to fulfill the thirst, then you will not be falling. A person who does not even jump into the swimming pool, what is the hope for that person? He's always sitting next to the swimming pool and maybe just enjoying other people fall and on their nose. That can be his enjoyment. Kabir says again, jin khoja tin paiya gehre pani pat. The one who actually wanted to found where? In the deep waters, in the depths of all the challenges. So if I'm not really challenging myself, in the next line he says, मैं बपुरा बूढ़न डरा रहा किनारे बैठ, and me, foolish me, I always, like a coward, sat on the side of the shore, never wanted to plunge in. Yeah. So sometimes we are so afraid that we would fall, we would not even move. We would say, okay, I am fine the way I am. This is how I am. If you want to live with me, live with me. Yeah. So that is settlement in that armchair next to the pool. Yeah. That may be a bit of joy for some time, but there is a lot of frustration there, which is not very obvious many a times. And then it obviously, if we are lucky, it leads to diseases. Even diseases can be a way to waking up. I'm saying if we are lucky, we can have diseases, because many a times a whole life is lived sitting on the side, and we don't even get diseases. So there is no chance for me to actually wake up. Yeah. But that is again, our journey as human beings. Yeah. So Shilpi, this now sentence, we are coming to this sentence, the only thing we must fear and avoid is the inertia of inconscience, of blind and heavy ignorance. Has it become any clear?
Yes, Monica. Yeah, thank you. But I have one follow-up question on this line.
Uh-huh.
Because when the mother says that the only thing we must fear and avoid is inertia and ignorance. So when she's saying we must avoid, that means she's saying that there is a willingness in us that we can use and avoid these things, right?
Beautiful. Yeah.
So my question is that, okay, I can see that right now, let's say right now I feel awake. No, I'm just saying that, okay, right now I feel like, okay, I'm present, right? And something comes along that I remember from the past, that if I indulge in this thing that I know for an X amount of time, I will kind of, plunge into that again, that state of ignorance, or forgetfulness and not remembering and things like that, right? And then I can take a decision that, okay, I don't want to indulge in that. So in that context, yes, it is making sense. If I'm starting from a state of being awake, but let's say if somehow it happens that I just find myself, I don't know how to say it, Monica, but what I'm trying to get to is that somehow it feels that the remembrance of the choice also doesn't come. Like it doesn't even come that there is that there may be a choice.
Yeah.
Or one feels too weak and it is so overwhelming and overpowering that it doesn't feel like, yes, okay, I can choose to avoid it or to get out of it.
Yeah.
So yeah. So does that mean anything?
Yeah. That means a lot. That means a lot, because I'm able to connect that with, for example, integral education, in context of Mother and Sri Aurobindo. Now, if I am growing myself and my kids in integral education, I would actually not allow myself to settle that, okay, I am the best and I am very satisfied and cool, settled person. And neither would I allow my kids to get settled in there, oh, that this is the best I can be. Yeah. So as if I'm saying that I can always be a better and better and better version of my own self. So first of all, sadly the education or the growing up usually that we get is that we are not really aware that this is a possibility, that we can give ourselves a good company of this thing, as you were sharing, that yes, there is a possibility of a will that I have. Whenever I feel too contented with myself, too satisfied with myself, I have to challenge myself with something even bigger. Yeah. So this, I think Kabir touches upon this in one of the couplet where he says, Dar karni, dar param guru. So he says fear is your param guru. Fear makes you move. So I am able to connect with that if we are, for example, he shares this in context of that agar if you have a human birth and you are not really fearing what you would lose if you would stay in contentment, then your life will be not really a worth lived life. So you better get afraid that you would actually waste this human life. So this, unfortunately, the way we are conditioned and the way we are growing up, usually this is not instilled in us as a, I would say this is a nurture that we have to give us. Yeah. Otherwise, this is not very visible to me that this is also a possibility. So I'm completely with you that if you're on the path, you have a bit of awareness of this ability, then it is possible. But otherwise, we are not even aware that this is a possibility. Yeah, that is
Yes,
how
yes.
I would say. Yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Yeah, Monica, what you told is very correct. Actually, giving a challenge more than our ability. No, yeah, it can be done for ourselves.
Yeah.
But what about another person? That
Yeah.
is the question. Yeah,
Yeah.
that is
Yeah.
the question.
You know,
Good
Chitra
to
ji,
love.
I
Yeah.
feel that in context of other persons, if
Mm.
the other people around us are receptive a bit,
Mm.
not completely receptive, but a bit
Yeah.
receptive,
Yeah.
I think we can, out of our love for them,
Yeah.
hint here and there, do some little manipulations and tricks so that we keep on challenging them.
Yeah.
Again,
Because
it's
here also it comes, no, we must therefore go constantly forward to conquer that universal bedrock of inconscience.
exactly.
These
Yeah.
lines I again and again I thought that's what
Yeah. Yeah. So, with mothers and Sri Aurobindo's words, it becomes very clear that the state, the sad state of human affairs is not really by mistake. It is the very task of us as magicians or as alchemists to transform this bedrock of inconscience to consciousness. This is our task. This is a task given to us. Now, the way we are usually growing up, we are not aware of this task. We think that roti, kapda, makan, living, sleeping, earning, marrying, settling down, this is our task. Yeah. So we forget our task. And again, Kabir ji refers to this in again and again, many, many couplets, that what really you came for doing on this earth, and where have you, gotten yourself? What?
Because I'm seeing both the
Hmm.
highly passionate person and this type of person, both the persons I'm seeing actually.
Yeah.
So sometimes I feel, why should we, as Shilpi shared, no, why should we involve ourselves? It is their own journey, their individual journey. Why should I bother about? Some thoughts come like that actually.
Yeah.
That also denotes the escapism. No, that is the
That, imagine that, Chitra ji, the
Yeah.
way I would see is that, imagine that there is a function happening at my house. Yeah.
Okay.
I know that you're not into functions, but imagine,
Yeah.
so how would you invite? You would say, you would really request all the people to come and join the feast and everything. Yeah. But when it comes to these spiritual matters, or making ourselves better and better, I think we are not really loving enough towards other people. एक बार अगर किसी ने मना कर दिया, one time somebody said no, I would not come, I would say अच्छा ठीक है, maybe it's his own life, he doesn't want to come, why would I say? Yeah.
Correct.
But if the love is really true, I would actually, coax that friend again and again, acha, come for a while, acha, try to come at least for one session, maybe like that.
Correct.
So this coaxing and cajoling, I feel we are easily able to do it for usual social functions, but we are not really able to do it in these hard matters of spirituality, for example. Yeah.
Yeah, because something in me always poking like that. Actually, you should put more effort. You should, but sometimes I avoid that. Actually,
Yeah. Actually, there is a lot of risk that we have to take. Because the other person may feel bad. he may come and, you know, retaliate
So
back
all
to you.
all the sorts of excuses come in the
Yeah.
mind. Need to force another person. These type of things come actually.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
need not force another person. Even that passions also. This
Yeah.
Thomasic tendency also. Yeah.
Yeah. I think वही बात है, you know, Chitra ji, I would say one has to be very sensitive that whatever trick, as Lord Krishna used to apply tricks for truth, you know, whatever tricks we can use here for our own good and for their good, I think we must use those tricks. Yeah.
Very nice. This prayer really first awakening me actually.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. That state lies at the very bottom of the infinite ladder that rises towards thee. Now, we have talked about this in many, many sessions, that surrender is an ever going path, ever progressive path. Wanting to unite with the divine is an ever progressive path. And the beauty is to be on the path. That is enough. Yeah. So this infinite ladder that goes up, rises up towards thee, towards perfection, towards the divine, this inconscience is the bottom of that infinite ladder. So it's very desirable actually to move away from that tamas or inertia. Yeah. And if you look at the way existence has been, the way manifestation has been, the first things that were created was stones, rocks, you know, absolutely still and like hard matter, you know, dense matter without any life really, you know, seeming life in it. Then out of that came, you know, maybe unicellular organisms or single celled organisms, and maybe plants, you know, these life forms began to merge out of that, and slowly animals and, you know, dinosaurs and all these forms slowly begin to develop out of that inertia of being a rock. You know, a rock is very heavy, you cannot move a rock. Yeah. So that also refers to this inconscience, you know, the hard inertia of inconscience. You know, that is how we have started. So that rock is still a part of me, that inertia of a rock is still a part of me. Yeah. It's very hard at times for me to take my learnings and lessons through all my challenges. It's very hard. Yeah. And that's why it's again and again said it's the path of a warrior. You know, you have to really be very courageous to be and to remain on this path. You know, you have to almost crush yourself again and again in order to rise from your ashes. Yeah. So here, you know, and all thy effort consists. So what is the divine effort? What is that effort that we as human beings have to put in pulling matter out of this primeval darkness? Primeval, you know, since ages, since the time stones, rocks were only there in manifestation, so as to awaken it to consciousness. You know, usme bhi jaan hai. The divine has involuted himself into that inconscience, and it's a discovery to find the divine there, you know, to make it happen for us as human beings. Now matter, as Shilpi was sharing in the beginning, that I used to think that matter is out there, you know, in the world. I can touch a laptop, I can touch somebody's skin, my own skin, so that is matter. Now we see, but now Shilpi shared that I feel that it is my own state of consciousness, you know, and I completely agree with what you were sharing, Shilpi, earlier, that matter is not out there. Matter and mind are one. You know, imagine mind to be a projection of the universal consciousness, and mind is an objectification of that universal consciousness, like a telescope made out of the universal consciousness so that it can look at stars, so that it can enjoy the beauty of stars. Yeah. But and that is how it appears to me, that there is something out there which I can call as matter. But if mind is absent, matter also is absent. It's only through the mind that matter exists. For consciousness, nothing exists apart from consciousness. When we say all is divine, all there is is divine. There is no other for the divine. But when we talk of mind or matter, we talk of otherness. Yeah. So this otherness is only in the context of mind. For a telescope, the stars or the planets are an other. Yeah. For me, sitting in front of a laptop, the laptop is an other because I'm seeing it through senses, through mind. But for the divine, the universal consciousness, there is nothing called the other because the mind is also an objectification of the universal consciousness. Where is the telescope coming from? From that mind. Where is the mind coming from? From the universal consciousness. So the origin is the one. There is only one that is there. And that is why, again, it reminds me of this Pakistani poet who sings in one of this thing, and the songs, Sufi kind of songs, where he says, you are the clay with which the forms are made. You are the clay itself. You are the forms, and you are the one who is creating the forms. So you are the mind. You are the maker of the mind. You are beyond mind, and also, what mind sees through the mind. So everything is one for consciousness. There is no other. Whenever we talk of other, whenever we talk of ego, the mind comes into picture. Whenever we talk of matter, the mind comes into picture. So the mind and matter is one. Now, what is our task here? What is the adventure that we are here for? Here it is said, all thy effort consists in pulling matter out of this primeval darkness so as to awaken it to consciousness. Now, these states of consciousness that you were talking of, they can ever go on widening, 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 and widening. I have known myself as the body, then I know myself as the vital being, then I most know myself as the mental being, and then I also have the capacity to know myself, which Sri Aurobindo and Mother talk of, the psychic and spiritual transformation, as something beyond the mind and the vital and the physical, as somebody more powerful than all these parts of the being, so that I can become a master of these parts and pieces of the being. Yeah, and that we refer to as first the psychic transformation and then the spiritual transformation. So this ever expanding consciousness, that we are capable of, this is not a possibility with animals, and that is why it is good to fear that my life will go a waste. It is good to fear, as Kabir says. Even passion is preferable to inconscience. I think we have already discussed that whenever I'm passionate about something, I fall on my nose again and again, or I try to fulfill myself, but I see that at one point, I see that I'm actually not able to completely fulfill myself. And that is the point where we turn to the divine, where we enter into the path of surrender, knowing that nothing is ever fulfilling in nature, no matter how much of temporary fulfillment it may give me. When that thing is absent, then I am again unfulfilled. I'm again incomplete. So what is the task? We must therefore go constantly forward. This is one thing very common when we see with mother's prayers and meditations, always forward and forward and forward. Even when we see mother's reflections about her own life, she always looked up to future, that yes, okay, this is the state I am in currently now. Okay, how can I make it better? How can I make it better? So an ever progressive warrior spirit, if one can say. We must therefore go constantly forward to conquer that universal bedrock of inconscience, this wanting of settlement with myself, and through our own organism, transform it gradually into luminous consciousness. So we are the divine presence and we are the inconscience. So all the courage and strength is lying within us, waiting for us to wake up to that. And once we begin to wake up to that, then we can use all the raw material of inconscience, all the, almost the bad qualities, the ugliness that we see within my own self as a raw material to perfect and to refine myself. Kabir says, बुरा जो देखन मैं चला, बुरा ना मिलिया कोई, जो मन खोजा आपना, मुझसे बुरा ना कोई. So all the ugliness is lying within me, not really outside. And mother says that the biggest social service that you can do is to perfect yourself. Go on and on perfecting and refining yourself. And in that you will be doing a lot of good as a side effect to other people. You know, it will be a side effect or a byproduct of your being on the path. So this is how we transform our own ugliness into our own beauty. Yeah, by being on this path of gradually transforming our own organism, progressing towards, you know, expanding beauty, expansion, widening of the being. You know, whenever we see limited qualities in us, whenever we see something negative, not really getting too much ashamed or in a trap that, oh my god, why is this lying in me? Yes, this is lying in me. Now how can I make it more beautiful? What can I learn through that challenge? And then I would not soak myself in guilt and shame and victimization that, you know, poor me, I am unfit and, you know, unfit for this path of yoga. I am not unfit. This is my challenge. You know, all the ugliness, how to transform into beauty. O Lord, sweet master of love, thou whom I see so living, you know, so conscious within all things. So mother is able to see this living presence, which is like a thirst, wanting to get better and better, improve, you know, in her own way. I adore thee with a boundless devotion, you know. So mother is almost, you know, with every prayer, mother almost is like a gratitude towards the higher self, that thank god for this adventure, because if this adventure is not there, what is there to human life? No, it's very dull. The human life, it's very stagnant if this adventure is not there. Yeah. Yeah, anything from the prayer so far, or then we can move to Shilpi's prayer if not anything. All right. So Shilpi, can you tell me the date of your prayer so that I can put it on?
Yes, Monica, it's December 28, 1928.
Okay, got it. Yeah. Yes, please, Shilpi, now take over and go ahead.
Okay, so it's a small prayer, but yeah, I think first I can read it. There is a power that no ruler can command. There is a happiness that no earthly success can bring. There is a light that no wisdom can possess. There is a knowledge that no philosophy and no science can master. There is a bliss of which no satisfaction of desire can give the enjoyment. There is a thirst for love that no human relation can appease. There is a peace that one finds nowhere, not even in death. It is the power, the happiness, the light, the knowledge, the bliss, the love, the peace that flow from the divine grace. So I was just scrolling the book and I just found this prayer and I found it very beautiful. And so yeah, I'll just quickly say the key parts that that resonated with me. So first of all, I felt that this prayer talks about the spirit of perfection that we in fact even talked about in the previous prayer, and also it puts in context the that whatever we are searching for or whatever we may at the end of our search may be able to achieve with all our efforts, all our intention, the divine is yet different from that, is yet something else, is yet the source of the purest power, happiness, light, knowledge, etc. So again, this prayer, I felt that it is very humbling. In a way, it is saying, it is not saying that I may just look at the prayer and feel like, oh, then what's the use of my effort and why should I put any effort? But I think that would be missing the point, because what she is saying is that this to me also meant like what Sri Krishna talks about in Gita, the unattached karma, the nishkam karma. Because it is, the prayer gives me an understanding that that the real thing is still flowing from the divine, no matter what I may achieve in the earthly success, in my earthly path, with my truest of intentions. What is really true and really meaningful is still flowing from the divine. So all of my, this gives me almost like a key to how my actions should be. My actions should be doing what I can, and yet rooted in the knowledge that whatever is really true is coming from the divine and not really from my actions, and not really as a fruit of my actions. So that I found very beautiful about this prayer. And also one more thing was, and also one more thing was that whatever I can perceive, whatever I can understand, whatever I can think about or imagine, it is still within this sphere, and the divine is yet another dimension. It is still this source. It is still not at no point should I think, yes, now I have grasped it, now I have it, now I understand it. At no point should I get into the ignorant state where I feel that हाँ अब समझ आ गया, अब मेरे पास खजाना आ गया, या something like खजाने की चाबी आ गई, या something like that. That cannot be the case, because the source from where it is coming is the source, and not my actions and whatever the effort may be. So I think that is what I resonated with in the prayer, and I would really invite you to see what you resonated with it. And there's this one more line in the end of first paragraph where the mother says, there is a peace that one finds nowhere, not even in death. And then later she says, the peace that flow from the divine grace. And that I think is very, very beautiful.
Beautiful. Thank you for sharing, Shilpi. Chitraji, would you like to share anything from this prayer?
Yeah, she explained it very well, actually. Very beautiful prayer, but I feel it is self-explanatory totally, actually. So everything is inside you, because the divine presence is inside. And if you find your divine presence, really you will feel that peace and happiness, light, knowledge, bliss, and love. Yeah, but of course, only after get all the experiences, maybe we will realize this state. I don't know, but yeah, this is the thing I resonated with.
Yeah. Beautiful. So Shilpi, you have already shared it very beautifully, yet I'll just kind of maybe add on a few points just in resonance with what you were sharing. When you were sharing, it was just like a visual was coming to me, that as if we are like, actually we are like stones, the hard crust of inconscience. And when Kabir ji says, Ram naam ki loot hai, loot sake to loot, he says, Now, if I am a stone, how can I actually luto the water, because water trips on me and I am like so chikna, chikna ghada we are, that the grace is all over me, around me, the grace, if I can consider grace as water and myself as a stone. But yet I am so hard and dry from inside, there is so much of thickness of this inconscious and darkness, the veil of ignorance that I have. So I feel that when you were sharing, it as if that all the works that we do, all the experiences, as Chitra ji was sharing, that we go through in human life, if they are actually doing their work of mellowing me down in the sense of making me porous, imagine that there is a stone, and now owing to the experiences or whatever things that it is going through life, the stone is becoming more like a sponge. So the grace or the Ram Nam was present all around, but earlier I was not able to soak it in. Why? Because I was so hard crusted. Now, owing to the experiencing and falling down on my nose again and again, owing to the passions or running here and there, I become soft and porous. So I become more and more mellowing down happens, and as if this ego has to become almost translucent, so that the divine which is everywhere, the water which is everywhere, only water remains and the sponge almost disappears. And that is our journey. I felt, when you were sharing, that the peace, the love, the bliss of satisfaction that we get through the divine which is present throughout everywhere in the creation, is not something we can achieve through any particular method or practice or work or a relationship. And no wonder that we fail. No wonder how physically close we may be to our loved ones. We are really forever almost in a thirst all the time. We consider physical intimacy very intimate, but really, even there we see that it cannot satisfy our thirst. So there is something even more higher, and again, as you said, that it is of some separate dimension, just like psychic or the soul is for of a separate dimension. It's belonging to the fourth dimension. It is untouched by the experiences, and what all can happen through my experiences is a constant dissolution of this thick crust of my being, the outer being. And the more and more dissolved it becomes, the more and more that grace which is forever present can can actually make me feel that, that yes, okay, that I feel content in myself, and I see that nothing can give me contentment. And then we can begin almost a new way of life, where we are not using relationships in order to fulfill myself, where I'm not using my work so that without the work I'm complete, I'm incomplete. I'm not using my kid to almost abuse the kid, that if the kid is not there, who am I? I have existential crisis, कि मेरा काम ही क्या है, why am I born if the kid is not there? So I feel that if this slowly can happen with our life, that we realize that the contentment can never be gotten from anything else. It is my original, if I can say, essence. And knowing that if I relate, if I work, if I earn money, now I will stop abusing the whole globe for my wanting to complete myself. Then a new life divine can actually, begin to, almost it can be a new beginning. As Sri Aurobindo and Mother say, that Nirvana is not the last step. Nirvana is the first step of this process or the path of integral yoga. So that would be really so beautiful for all each one of us. Yeah. And it also gives, almost I can relate it with the hopelessness from the world, where Mother is saying that there is a thirst for love that no human relation can appease, no matter how close that relationship may be to you. That thirst will forever remain a thirst. So it almost brings me to a kind of hopelessness from the external world, and only then I turn within. Only then I get almost in, a touch with this unattached one within my being, which is complete, which is forever complete. And now I can act and relate in the world, knowing that nothing can complete me. That would be a beautiful relating. Yeah.
Also, Monica, relating to what you said earlier, no, about the
Yeah.
education system.
Yeah.
So I felt like nobody says this as simply as that to us. We also don't say it further, but when you were growing up, nobody said that, yes, you try it and you see whether it gives you what you really, really want. You know, it is kind of given as a prescription that, okay, you do this, then you do this, and then you do this, and then you'll be happy. Even
Yeah.
forget telling that कर लो लेकिन मिलेगा नहीं.
Hmm.
Okay, nobody says that. Fine, but nobody even gives that questioning attitude कि करके देखो, करो और reflect करो. Nobody even gives that.
Yeah.
Everybody just gives that, yes, karo and milega.
Hmm.
You know, it's almost like you know, we kind of go really the inverted way, na? That yes, we should do it, and then we'll find it, and then we start to question, and then finally we come on the basic thing that should have been the first thing.
Exactly.
That yes, karo, but milega nahi.
Yeah.
I mean, not here. Yes,
Yeah.
you'll not find it here. You'll
Yeah.
find it somewhere else. But yeah.
Yeah, beautiful. I think that would just reflect, Shilpi, that those of us who are telling us, you know, to without questioning go on and on and on, they themselves have not been questioning. So what can they, you know, kind of, they can only give us what they have done with their life. And I think if, yeah, please go ahead.
Yeah. Correct. No. I'm just listening.
Yeah. So I was just sharing that, you know, now if we are on our journey getting aware of this ability to question, ability to pause and reflect, you know, I think it's a beautiful opportunity that we can hold hands of people around us and our kids, so that they also, you know, from the very beginning, they have the nurture we which we missed as a human being, you know, in our own childhood. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. That is what I was also going to say, that at least going forward, the how we live can be a reflection of this sort of discovery, you know, that we can at least say that, you know, you try it and then you see, you know, this is the reason you're doing it. You try it and then see where it takes you. So it's like you're giving them the reins instead of, you know, pulling the reins yourself and saying, okay, abhi ye karo, then do this, and then you will find what you're looking for. That feels very,
you know,
crazy.
this ability to see, reflect and pause, you know, this is such a rare thing almost, you know, while growing up. We are just kind of, I would say, pushed into one phase of life to another, you know. अच्छा जॉब हो गई तो शादी कर लो, शादी हो गए तो चलो बच्चे कर लो, you know. मतलब सोचने का जो टाइम लेना चाहता है, you know, people who want to actually take a time out and reflect, they are actually, they have to undergo, almost they have to pay the price for the freedom to reflect, you know. They have to be rejected and, you know, almost abandoned from their family members.
Yeah, loser bolte hain.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that should be the, at least what, according to our present understanding, that should actually become a way of life, you know, reflecting more and not jumping from one life milestone to another milestone without seeing what it is able to give us at all. Yeah. Beautiful. So great. Anything else, or shall we call it a session here?
Yeah, Monica, as usual, I will end with one thoughts and algorithms from Sri Aurobindo.
Please.
Actually,
Yeah.
it is a beautiful explanation regarding the first prayer we read, no? Actually, yeah, the saint and the angel are not the only divinities. Admire also the titan and the giant. This is from Sri Aurobindo. Explanation given by Mother. This means that sweetness without strength and goodness without power are incomplete and cannot totally express the divine. I could say, in keeping with the kind of image used by Sri Aurobindo, that the charity and generosity of a converted asura are infinitely more effective than those of an innocent angel. Sorry.
Yeah, take your time, Chitra ji. It's
Yeah.
okay. Yeah.
I will read it again actually. That the
Yeah.
charity and generosity of a converted Asura are infinitely more effective than those of an innocent angel.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for sharing. I'll put it up on the group also,
Yeah,
this
yeah, yeah.
aphorism and the explanation by the mother. Yeah. Great. Thank you so much. Yeah. All right. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank
Today,
you.
beautiful praise. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Shruti,
Thank
Shruti said,
you.
yeah,
Yeah.
your explanation also very nice, Shruti.
Yeah, and thank you, Chitraji, for your explanations and sharings also.
Yeah.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye.
Bye bye.